Thank you, Clint. Yeah. Oh, thanks, sweetie. I think Clint is videotaping or recording anyway. He's recording. So how's this sound? Can everybody hear? Is that working? Yeah? Okay, right. Not quite used to having a microphone in front of my face here. So anyway, well, thank you everybody so much for coming and supporting me. I so appreciate this tonight. And Sarah would have had books to sell, but she put them out, I guess, recently, and they all sold. So that's exciting. and so, I wrote this book, as most of you know, called Love and Spirit Medicine. And the book is very vulnerable and very personal telling. And it initially goes into the demise of my marriage, but told very consciously. And I explore my own personal shadow and projections. So I go into that piece. And then what happened is I began a monthly exploration of entheogenic mushroom medicine. And it was a very shamanic exploration because I have been practicing shamanism for a number of years now. And just to give you a little background for those of you who are hearing me for the first time, I live here in Redmond, and I'm a writer, and I teach this. And I also host monthly ceremonies, and I've created this community of absolutely beautiful women, many of whom are in this room right now. You know who you are. And so I really have devoted my life to this way of being, this way of living, this, I call it walking the beauty walk and living the beauty way. And so I'm in service. I'm in service to my sisters, and I'm in service to my brothers. And my goal in life is I consider myself a spiritual warrior. And so that is to seek to know. And so I'm on this quest for the truth. I'm on this quest to know. And I'm not satisfied by what this society has presented me. I'm not satisfied with the answers to any of these questions that I have found looking out there. And so this working with the medicine really blew my mind. I discuss this in the book. I began with a dear friend of mine who was a personal friend for a couple of years. And he was pretty familiar with this medicine. And so I went up to his beautiful land, and we had this first experience outside in the forest, which is really as it should be. And I will say that when you are working with these medicines, and they are indeed medicines, set and setting is essential, the right set and setting. And because to me, this is a sacrament. This is not something that I do recreationally. You will not find me at Burning Man running around in feathers and platform shoes and a G-string tripping my brains out. That won't be me. I don't use it to get laid. This is a sacrament, and it is a portal to spirit. And I found that out from the very beginning. And our approach was a la Terence McKenna, who died in 2000. And he was a writer and a speaker and an absolute genius. And he wrote extensively about mushroom medicine and ayahuasca. And so in reference to the mushrooms, he wrote about taking them in what he called a heroic dose. So that was 5 grams, lying down in the dark, eyes closed. And so this was our approach. And so that my first experience with this, it was very intense. And what ended up happening was I was lying on Mother Earth, and then she spoke to me, which shocked me entirely. And in my mind, I started to think about something I hadn't really thought about before, or much. I was adopted when I was 5 months old, and when I was younger, I often thought, I think it was a mistake, and that came to mind when I was very deep in the medicine, and instantly, the earth responded and said, "My daughter, you were no mistake." And that elicited a torrent of sobs from me. And I experienced a very deep healing from that, because in that moment, I knew I had direct contact with the sacred, and I had received a very profound healing from the mother. And so after that experience, I became very interested in this medicine and proceeded to do a lot of my own research. I'm a consummate a voracious researcher, and found that this medicine has been used for thousands of years. In every culture, it was used by the Aztecs and the Mayans, and they called it God's flesh or God's children. And they horrified the Spanish clergy with their use of this medicine. And the Spanish clergy came in as Inquisition, and anyone who was caught doing this medicine was murdered. And it also goes back to the Mediterranean priest and priestess cults as well. The oracles at Delphi were working with psychotropic substances. And it also goes back to Judeo-Christianity as well. It's everywhere. And of course it would be, right? And this medicine, these plant medicines, have long been the domain of women. They've long been the domain of women. And I will tell you that in my research, I have read now probably closer to 50 books on entheogenic mushroom medicine. All but 2 have been written by women. And they're excellent books, very academic for the most part, very highly informative, but written primarily by men. And so my book is this very personal telling. It's a woman's story of a journey into myself, because as my marriage fell apart, I then became involved with this dear friend of mine. We became involved romantically, and for 5 months, I had this extraordinary experience with this man and also working with this medicine together. And then it fell apart very suddenly, like a slap in the face, and absolutely devastated me and sent me into the core of my deepest wound, which was that original piece of being, almost discarded, you would say, by my birth mother. And so you think, well, you're a baby, you don't really remember that. But the deep psyche certainly does, right? This imprints the deep psyche very profoundly, and it really sets the course then of the patternings for your life. And in the book, I discuss this and how struck I was by these life patterns that really were mimicking my first few months in life. And so in that process of dealing with that grief and despair over that, in addition to my already bruised heart over what happened in my marriage, I walked through that, and I engaged the medicine a few weeks afterwards by myself for the very first time, whereas before that I'd always done the medicine with this friend of mine, right? And so I did it in a way, and this is the way of the high initiate, where you feel like you have no skin left. You are so beaten. You're so beaten. And I took this medicine. I knew it was time. This had to be by myself. And that day, by the way, I had received a beautiful white owl fan, the tail of a white owl. Throughout the book, I discussed these synchronicities that I was experiencing with owl. And I'll back up a little bit. So a few months before I went into this solo journey, this friend of mine who makes these beautiful medicine pieces, who's Native American, had called me and said, I have something I have for you. I've been thinking about you so much. And this piece I need to give to you, And I said, well, can you tell me what it is? And he said, it's the tail of a snowy white owl. And I was really blown away because of how prevalent this being had become for me. And so I drove an hour and a half to this friend of mine to see this piece. And then he said, look, I can make it into a fan. He's a master beater, and I'll do this for you. So that arrived in January, the day of this very first solo journey that I took with the medicine, with this broken heart. And so, no coincidence. And so, before I do the medicine, each and every time, I do this with ritual. And one of the things that I am endeavoring to do with this book also is to bring these medicines back to their rightful place as medicines of reverence, as medicines that deserve our respect because they are sacraments. So I took this beautiful white owl fan and I saged my room and I called in White Owl and then I laid down and then I took this medicine, right? And so it began to kick in and I said, listen, I come to you with no skin left, just my wounded heart. And I come to you for your guidance tonight. And this is that humble approach to the medicine. And you're working with a teacher. A plant is a teacher. These were the original teachers. And these were the teachers that we as human beings turn to throughout history. We did not need the intermediary of a priest or anything else. We had these plants. We understood these plants. So I went into this piece, and this white sphere came to me, and then it had wings, and then standing before me was this beautiful woman with long white hair and a dress of luminescent white feathers, and she said, I am White Owl. I am your medicine, and I will work with you, daughter who longs. She called me daughter who longs. And for the next 3 or 4 hours, however long that was, I experienced a very profound mystical experience. Now, every experience that I had on these plant journeys was amazing. But then you have that mystical one, that truly mystical experience that you never forget, the one that you feel like, I think I've lived my whole life to experience this. And she said, you will be birthed tonight, daughter who longs. You will be birthed from daughter who longs to daughter who knows. And then Mother Earth worked with me. And then at one point, I kind of came out of the medicine, and I called a friend of mine in the book who I refer to as Amelia. Everyone's name is changed in the book. Amelia is a midwife. And so I called, and we were talking. I mean, I was very deep in the medicine, but I wanted to speak to her. I was having a bit of a rough time, and this is someone who's very experienced with the medicine, who is a sister to me. And then I said, you know what? They're calling me daughter who longs. And I think that this has to do with my adoption experience. I think this has to do with I think that's my core wound, is my feeling that I came in as a mistake, And then it occurred to me, because growing up, being adopted, my parents would always say, oh, your birth parents loved you very much, but they just couldn't keep you and blah, 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 right? But it occurred to me that the truth was that I came in not as someone's joy. I came in as someone's burden. And that never, ever occurred to me before. And then on 5 grams of mushrooms, when your heart is cracked open, because this is heart medicine, I fell into the devastation of that, the incredible, indescribable despair of that realization. And what I did was I went in all the way to my core wound, and I faced it. And this dear friend of mine, Amelia, essentially midwifed me through that. So then when that piece was complete and my sobs had passed and I was able to let her go, I went back into the journey, and White Owl was waiting for me, and she said, good. It was a good birth. You are now daughter who knows. And I saw myself as a fledgling owl on the arm of Pan, who was wearing one of those leather gauntlets, when you're working with birds of prey. And he said to Mother Earth, she is a daughter who knows, and she will fly. I will work with her. And so anytime I went into daughter who longs, he would so lovingly say, you are a daughter who knows, and you will fly. And then at one point, White Owl stood in front of me, and she said, she is daughter who knows, and she can fly. And in that moment, I became the White Owl. And I had a pair of extraordinary wings. And in that moment, in this exquisite journey, I realized that I needed no one else to be my other wing. I had my own set of wings that could take me to unimaginable heights. And so, when I came out of that journey, which was indescribably powerful and beautiful, I was forever changed. And I still had to walk through that process, that experience, and the book chronicles that. But at the end of the book, I really came to this realization, not even realization, but a knowing of myself. I said, you know what? So many books are out there talking about finding your soulmate. But really, what this journey is about is finding your own soul and falling in love with your own soul. And I'll tell you something else that happened to me on this medicine was, this medicine, you know what? It is like, to me, it's like you go through a portal, and I go through this portal to sit on God's lap. And I talk to the spirits, and the spirits talk to me. And my heart is my key. Because when you're in the spirit world, I always joke that your rap doesn't work in the spirit world, because they can see, they read your frequency signature, right? And so my signature is my truth is my heart. And I began encountering these different beings, and they would talk to me and they would teach me. Then they started coming in me, and they started animating me. Now, I actually have a history of this. I have a history of this without any medicine, doing energy work on people. This happened a half dozen different times where that person had passed would come into me, this person who was on the other side, and then I would speak for this person. And so, interestingly, of course, then this would happen on the medicine as well. And these beings are teaching beings, and they work with me today. And I'll tell you, I did this very focused work, like someone who's crazy, right? Every month, I was doing 5 or 6 grams of this medicine. That's a lot of medicine for over a year. Well, what was I doing? Well, part of me knew precisely what she was doing. And I understand now that I was in a type of training with medicine that I've worked with for lifetimes. As so many of us understand, what we are doing is a continuation of what we have been doing in different guises, right, as we've been back and forth on this planet, okay? So I came into being a medicine oracle, which is a very, very ancient art form. Again, think of the oracles at Delphi. In the Norse traditions, you have the vulva, V-O-L-V-A, which were women who also would work with psychotropic substances, and they would also work with sound, and they would go into trance, and they would be the oracles, all right? This goes way back. So I have done this a handful of times now where I allow these beings to come through. And so it's a form of possession, but they don't stay. And I have very clear boundaries with these beings as well. You know, I say, all right, fine, you can come through, but you have to give me a little healing. And I am, well, I can't say I'm pushing 50 anymore, because I am, damn it. So I ask for a little cosmic facelift when they come in. But in any case, their teachings are Coyote teachings. And so the indigenous people talk about Coyote teachings. What are Coyote teachings? They give you a little clue. They give you a little tidbit to chew on. And then you got to go work with that. And the beings have said, look, this is a gigantic holographic game that you are all a part of, and you all are willing players. You all came willingly. And we're not going to give away the goods. What's the fun in that? But we will give you some pretty big clues. And we expect you to work with them, you know? And so they have come in and said that they are our assist, and that they promise that they would come in as our assist. And I'll tell you right now that they are not coming in as our authority. They've made this very clear, and I'll tell you, this is why I trust these beings. Because they're not telling me or anyone else what to do. And by the way, they can read your frequency signature, right? And part of what my frequency signature says is, fuck you, you're not the boss of me, right? So I know, I didn't get the kind of beings that would say, you must do this, you know? I get the beings that are like, all right, we can respect that. We can work with that, okay? And so there are assists, and so they provide us with these clues, and they know that I'm a voracious researcher, and I will run with it. And let me just sort of check here. All right, so one of the things they've taught me is they talk about spells, and they have said that this planet is run. It's run on fear, which is the spell. It's a big, thick spell. And our entire society that we see out there is nothing but a construct. It's an artificial construct. And it's held together by consensus agreement. It's not even real, right? A corporation's not real, right? And so a governmental body, it's not really real, okay? We all agree to these things because we agree to them, but they're not real. What's real? This medicine will teach you what's real. And it's interesting, too, because it's, you know, these medicines, they've been called hallucinogens, and a hallucinogen means something that you see or hear that is not real. Well, one of the things these beings have taught me is that so much in this world that we live in has been flipped. It's been reversed, okay? So that's nonsense, because as I just said, what's not real is this construct called society. That's not real. What's real is Earth, Terra, Gaia, Pachamama. Each of us as human beings are real. And I went to Palenque last year. I led a group there, and I was very excited. It was in the Yucatan. I was very excited to be in Palenque because I wanted to go visit the Red Queen. 1,000 years ago in Palenque, Lady Zakuk, also known as the Red Queen, ruled. And even 1,000 years ago within the Mayan culture, that was very unusual to have a woman ruling. And so I had a little bit of medicine with me. I was there with a shaman teacher, and I had him take the group for the day. And I found a quiet place, and I took this medicine, and I closed my eyes. And instantly she appeared, this beautiful woman, and she was all orangey red, and she had these a headdress of feathers with serpents in between each feather, and she was eyeing me very carefully, and all those serpents were also eyeing me. What were they doing? Reading my frequency. And so we proceeded to have a conversation. And she said to me, "You are majestic beings, but you've been robbed of your majesty." And so when I got home, I thought to myself, she referred to us as majestic, and I pay a lot of attention to words because that's where the spells lie. That's where you hear when you spell a word, because words are spells. So I look up the etymology of the word. Etymology is word origins. Forget the definitions. Oxford and Webster, those were guys with their biases, and definitions of words change with the times. Look to the etymology, and that will tell you what that word was originally meant to mean. So the etymology of the word majestic means royalty. So here this spirit being was saying, we're royalty, you and me, kings and queens, but we've been robbed of our royalty. Well, another thing that these beings had said was that our magic is returning to us. And that particular being said our magic had been taken from us long, long time ago. All right? And these beings are very clear that they do not bring any of this information through the lens of fear, because they say your planet's been run on fear. It's the only language you know. And so we will not bring this through the lens of fear. And at the same time, they want us to understand what's going on, understand what has been done. Because they said, our magic is being returned to us now. So it's no longer, do you want a wand? It's how big a wand do you want, right? What did we do last year? We all called in the light, did we not? We called in the light big time. And I always joke with my students, I say, you think the dark is scary? Wait till you see what the light will do. Because what is light? Light is information. You turn on the light, you can see what's going on in the room, can you not? You can see, oh my God, it's a mess in here. You see stuff you didn't know was there, and you also see stuff that you didn't want to know was there, right? And so this is happening within ourselves, personally, and collectively, because as within, so without. As above, so below. So we're in this period of great shift. And so we are being made to see, those of us with eyes to see and ears to hear, and that's the way it's always been. We're being made where we've got a window of opportunity where we're going to get to see what's going on. Because when you can see what's going on, you cannot be fooled. A spell only works if you believe in it, right? And so once you see, I always say the shaman sees. The shaman sees, which is why when they took over these shamanic communities, they would either tempt the shaman with gold and silks and whatever, which worked sometimes, or they would just set the people against the shaman, or they just kill them outright. But they certainly did not try to go and get the shaman to believe in what they believed, because they knew it wasn't going to work, because the shaman had direct experience. So right now, what's going on is Mother Earth is using her plants to call her children back to her so that we can remember again what we are. Because we have lost ourselves. We've forgotten what we are. And so, of course, everyone in this room, obviously I'm speaking to a bunch of voracious seekers and very awakened people, but we share this world with so many people, right? And we can see how asleep people still are and the suffering that they're experiencing. And I want to tell you something. This is the garden. This is Eden that we're in. And we are God. We are God. And we have forgotten, because schoolyard bullies, that's what the beings refer to them as, schoolyard bullies came over, saw a good thing, and took advantage of a good thing. So this has been going on for thousands of years. So we've been born, right? We've been born into this structure, and we've been taught not to even question. We just sort of take it for granted that this is the way things are, okay? And we've been taught that God is something outside of ourselves, and that the Savior's coming. And so that Savior can be Jesus, or in some people in this community, they think it's the UFOs are going to come and save us, or, you know, it's Obama, or it's going to be what? No, 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 no. That's bullshit. We are the Savior. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the second coming. We are the Christ. It's us. Now, Marianne Williamson, who wrote A Return to Love, I remember her joking about this, going, I guess, whatever, in her meditation, it came to her, yeah, we're the ones we've been waiting for. It's up to us. And she was like, oh, God, are you serious? I went to high school with these people. Like, are you sure? You know? But it's true. And I won't get too into it here, but I will tell you, I went to, in April, to the MAPS conference in San Francisco, which is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. And so that is an annual conference. They have 100 researchers from 13 different countries, and they're all coming to share their research with these substances. Substances like psilocybin, MDMA, ibogaine, ayahuasca, and they're sharing their research about the extraordinary healing that these medicines offer. They help people to stop drinking. I mean, they negate addiction altogether. Ibogaine will completely eradicate heroin addiction. All right. Also, depression. Think how many people in this society are just so terribly depressed. Cluster headaches, intractable PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. All right? And so then they were talking at this conference and saying, well, you know, with MDMA, it's our hope that it will be legalized for at least psychiatric use by 2020. And I'm thinking, I asked myself some very practical questions when I was there. I was thinking, what? How's that possible? These substances alleviate suffering in the right setting, right? They're clearly very, very powerful medicines of consciousness, right? And why are we, you know, supplicating ourselves to these people in Congress or whatever authority they have to make these legal? Why, you know, who are these people? Who are these people? Because these substances are clearly, um, uh, incredibly powerful healing mechanisms. But they are what's the word? They're thought of as Schedule 1 drugs. And a Schedule 1 drug, it's three things. One, it has no medical value whatsoever. Okay. Two is highly damaging and dangerous. Well, that's nonsense. And three is highly addictive. These substances, believe me, you do not want to be doing much. Just trust me on that. It's not addictive. You have to brace yourself. But in any case, and the researchers were saying, well, that's not based on science. It's based on whatever. They didn't really say what it was based on. It's all politics. But I just started asking myself, you know what? Who are these people? Aren't they charged with leading us? Aren't they working for us? What's going on? Well, of course we all know what's going on. They're not working for us. They never were. They never were. And there's a big difference between legal and lawful. And so what happened was, right before I went to MAPS, I did a medicine journey, and the trees began speaking to me. And the trees said to me, do not call yourself an earth citizen. Citizen is a Roman word. You are an earth sovereign. And I was like, okay, all right. And then I didn't really, I thought about it. I was like, what do they mean by that? And then I went to MAPS, and then MAPS was what really got me going, because I was getting pissed off that these medicines were so vilified. And then I started looking up citizen. And yes, it is indeed a Roman word. And citizen is not a free being. I'm reading a book right now on Roman slave law. And a citizen is a slave. It can be a slave or not a slave. But a citizen doesn't mean you are free. All right? And so part of the matrix of what we are in, it is a legal matrix. So there's what's legal. That's based on what our government tells us, right? Because we're talking about substances that are illegal, okay? Their laws are based on statutes and codes. Because I was also asking myself the very practical question of, well, wait a minute, how can you make a plant illegal? How can marijuana be illegal? How can a mushroom, it grows, I can find them in parks by rhododendron if you know what you're looking for, you know what I mean? How can that be illegal? Well, it can be made illegal by the attorneys, but it's not unlawful. So check this out. Law is God's law. And you can think of God as however you want. God, Goddess, Mother Nature, all right? There's God's law. And we are all human beings, men and women, under God's law. And God's law is you do no harm to another human being. That's God's law. Period. The end. And so then the legal laws, that's a whole different thing entirely. And so I'll just get into this very briefly, and then I want you to do some research on this, because we need to understand this, all right? This is the matrix. When you're born, you come in, you're perfect, you're God, all right? Then you are issued a birth certificate. And if you go look at your birth certificate or your children's birth certificate, you will see that the name is written in capital letters. Do you write your name in all caps? No one does. No. When something is written in all caps, it indicates that it is a corporation. And so what they have done when you were born, your mother signs this birth certificate, but unbeknownst to her, what she is doing is she's actually signing you away. She's giving you away, all right? And then your father's supposed to claim you, but no one knows that, so he doesn't claim you. So you're considered lost at sea, essentially. And so the state takes you and you have a birth certificate, that's your receipt, and you are considered a fiction. You are now a person. And the legal definition of person is not what we think of as a person. A person is an entity, fiction, company, or corporation. You are an entity. And then that name is a false name. It's a corporation. And your last name, by the way, belongs to the crown, doesn't belong to you. All right? So So from that day forward, you belong to the state. And then so in other words, an attorney has sanctioned you. You already were. You were born perfect God. But no, you've been given a birth certificate and you've been sanctioned to be. And you spend the rest of your life, you know, trying to find your title or live what your title is. I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, I'm a whatever, right? And you spend your whole life trying to be a good citizen and pay your taxes, which, by the way, is voluntary, all right? And, you know, there's so much we don't know because we just unquestioningly accept what we've been told as truth. And it's not. It's anything but. And so here's why these medicines are illegal. Because these medicines are not a hallucinogen, a hallucination, all right? Another word for these medicines is psychedelic. Psychedelic is from the Greek words. Psyche is the mind, and delos means to clear or cleanse. So they clear and cleanse the mind so you can see. It's just like the Matrix, all right? Morpheus said, look, I told you I'd give you the truth. I didn't tell you you would like it. I didn't promise you would like it, all right? But you can see. And that's what has happened since I've been working with this medicine. I can see so clearly what's going on. I see this game that we're in, all right? And so what is our piece in this game? Our piece is to come into our godhood and claim ourselves, remember ourselves as human beings, as beauty beings. You are not what you do. You're not your career. You're not your car. You're not your house. You're God. You're God. And how do you subjugate God? You tell God that they're not God. You tell them God is outside of them. And you tell them they're a sinner or they're a bad person. On and on and on and on, right? And so we tell ourselves these really mean stories. So part of my work when I do work with my students, as they will tell you, is to break that spell. I'm daughter who knows, and I'm a spell breaker. And you can only break the spell when you can see what it is, all right? And then you don't have to be afraid of it. It's nothing to fear. You're God. You have nothing to fear. However, this is walking the red path. It's the path of the high initiate. It's not an easy path. If it was, everyone would walk it. It's the path for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. All right? And so you're going to come to a point on this path where you are going to have to claim your godhood. And you know what? There are specific legal forms that are designed specifically for that. You won't be told what those forms are, but they're there. Because this is an entire system. It's a matrix. It's all around the planet. And it's not just the United States, by the way, so don't feel bad. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so I'm kind of not sure what's going on a much grander scale, you know? I mean, do we have whatever, I don't know, alien, reptilian, whatever. You know what? Who gives a shit? That doesn't affect me personally. It really doesn't, you know? I know what I can do for myself, you know? And so for myself, it is to know myself as God, to shed all the programming, all the shitty stories that I've told myself my whole life that are false. That are false. We have been worshiping a false God. We've been worshiping a false God through patriotism. You're patronizing a false father. So I am not a Bible person at all, but Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Jesus is a metaphor. Jesus is you. Latin for Jesus, it was actually G-E, which is earth, and S-U-I-S, your. Jesus is your earth. Guess what you are? Your earth. Your estate, this is earth. This is your earth. So, I bet you weren't expecting this tonight. In any case, I mean, this is the depth of my exploration with this medicine. You know, these beings have led me. They dangle a carrot. They give me some clues. And I dig really, really deep because I seek to know. And then I have a big mouth and a pretty sharp mind. So I share this I share this because I don't want to suppress and hoard this all to myself. No, this is for all of us. We came here to assist each other and help each other wake up and rebuild true community of the heart, true community as human beings, not persons, not citizens. No, human beings. We are earth sovereigns. And another thing that this beautiful lady Zak Cook said to me, and I'll finish with this. We were having this discussion, you know. I talked to her just like I talk to you guys. I talk to these beings like I talk to you, right? And earlier that morning, with the group that I was with and my shaman friend Miguel and Hal, they were all talking about how, well, we're really aliens, we're really this and this and this, you know. And in my medicine journeys, the fairies come into me all the time. They come in and they dance my body and they're pure bliss, which, by the way, as a quick aside, everything you've been told is a lie, basically. The good news, the fun news is everything you've been told is a lie. Even the stuff they said, like, oh, fairies aren't real and elves aren't real and blah, 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 and it's just your imagination. Ha, ha, ha. No, no, it's real. It's real. Magic is real. It's so real. All right. So anyway, so I'm talking to Lady Zak Cook, and I remembered that, and so I go, hey, am I Fae? And she throws her head back and laughs, and she says, you humans, always wanting to be something other than what you are. And she says, never mind what you were before you came. You came here to play human. So play the highest expression of human you know to be. And so, with that, I will finish with that. Oh, and quickly say also that White Owl had come in during one of these channelings, and she said, yes, this is a grand game we're in, and you are light. So, play light. Play light. Be light. So, thank you very much. I hope you all read my book and love it and tell everybody you know. And I love what I do. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions or wants to open a discussion, all right, Tanya, thanks for coming. Oh, you're not going? Oh, okay. Tanya's using the restroom. Any questions? Come on, this is a good topic. All right. All right, never mind. We're done.